Hi everyone, in this video I will be going through notes 3.4, glide reflections and compositions. So our first vocab word we have is a glide reflection. And a glide reflection is the combination of a translation followed by a reflection in a line parallel to the translation vector. So basically we are going to do a translation of our object and then we will reflect that object that we just translated. So you should have 3 images on your actual graph. So let's look at this first example. They give us a quadrilateral and they already graphed it. They want us to translate along the vector 5, 0 and then reflect in the x-axis. So just a reminder, when you're looking at a translation vector, the first number tells you left or right. So this means we are moving right 5. And this 0 here, that means no shift to your y's. So we're not going up and down at all with our y values. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our quadrilateral and shift it right 5. And I'm going to label it with a little prime mark. So it should look something like this. From here, we're now going to reflect over the x-axis. So remember, your x-axis is this one that goes straight across horizontally. And when you're reflecting, you want to count how many units your current shape is away from the x-axis and then go through the other direction. So for example, S here is 2 away, so I'm going to go to the opposite direction. And I'm going to mark this as S double prime. So I'm going to do the same thing with my other letters, and again, you're just going to mark it with a double prime. Because this is the second time that you're shifting the object. So your final image that you would submit would be the green one here. So we translated first, so we shifted everything right 5, and then you took this image and you reflected it over the x-axis. So your final image is the double prime image, your green one. All right, example 2. So same idea, we're given points for a triangle here, so let's go ahead and get that on our graph. This is our original image, so we're going to mark that with just A, B, and C. Now we're going to start the translation. So the translation tells us to add 10 to our x's, so we're going to move right 10. And again, nothing with the y's. So we're moving right 10. And we're going to label it with a prime. So right 10 should look something like this. And now we want to reflect in the x-axis. So again, I'm going to highlight our x-axis and we want to flip it across this yellow line. And now we're going to label double prime. So our final image should look something like this in green. So again, just a recap, we first went right 10, and then we reflected over the x-axis. It's super important that you go in the order of translation first and then reflection. Now we're going to look at what a composition is. So a composition is 2 or more transformations that are combined to produce a single transformation. So now we could do rotations and reflections, or we can do translations and reflections, or translations and rotations. It's any of the two that we have already learned. So let's look at example 3. We are given a segment PQ, so we're going to go ahead and graph that. So here's my segment PQ. We first want to do a rotation 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then we're going to reflect in the y-axis. So our rotation rules for 90 degrees counterclockwise says that we're going to switch our x and y value, and then we're going to make that first number opposite. So I'm going to look at my values. I have P is at 2, -2, and Q is at 3, -4. So to do a rotation 90 degrees, I want to switch my numbers, and then I'm going to make this first number opposite. So since it's negative, it's going to be positive. Same thing with Q. Switch my two numbers first, and now I'm going to make that first number opposite. So let's go ahead and graph that. So I have P prime and Q prime. So what we did was we rotated our original segment 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now we want to reflect over the y-axis. So I'm highlighting that in blue. Now it's going to be P double prime and Q double prime. So my final points ended up being at -2, 2 and -4, 3. Let's go ahead and try this very last example. So we're given a triangle. We want to first translate it along the vector, and then we're going to rotate it 180. So -1 tells me left 1, +5 tells me up 5. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to mark that as T prime, U prime, and V prime. And I'm going to go ahead and write those points out to help me with the second step here. So now to do a rotation 180 degrees, you have to remember the rotation rules. So the rotation rule says you want to do opposite of x and opposite of y. So I'm going to write down my new points. T double prime is going to be at -1, -4. U double prime will be at -4, -3. And V double prime will be at -2, -1. Now I'm going to make sure I get that on my grid. Connect my dots. This is my final image, and these are my final points. So just remember when you are doing these that you go in the order that the transformations are listed. That is going to bring us to the end of our notes. If you have any questions, please make sure to reach out to your teacher.